obscene.
Bruce and James and Jake signing off to the Wiki tonight in Austin. Thank you.
You mean it? Really? How about the tarantella?
Is that a definite no?
That's
That's a definite no.
All right, what can I say?
Well, you want to get up and play?
They'll go home with her next night.
Okay, Ole Burrow got tired. He went home. But we want to thank all the groups that have come out tonight to celebrate our 10th anniversary celebration. St. James Gate, representing the Southwest Country Music Association. Hill Country Express, representing the Central Texas Bluegrass Association. Maria Terra Sandgren and Linda Thompson, representing the Lone Star State Dulcimer Association. And Mike Head, Chuck Thompson, and Bill Slater, representing the Houston Folklore Society. It's been a lot of variety, and we really have enjoyed it all. And we want to invite you all to show up tomorrow morning, well, almost morning, 1 o'clock tomorrow. I realize it's past 1 o'clock tonight. But at 1 tomorrow, we are going to start our workshop series. And all the groups that you've seen performing this evening will be conducting workshops tomorrow. Plus, we will be having a workshop with the Shambles Morris team of Houston in Morris dancing. And at 3:30, we will be having a workshop with the Red Clay Ramblers on the subject of Appalachian music. And of course, tomorrow evening, we will have a concert with the Red Clay Ramblers. And that concert will be opened with a representative of the Austin Friends of Traditional Music, namely John Henley. John Henley is kind of a local hero around here, obviously. We just decided that this afternoon, so you'll all be pleased to hear that. You can't say we really get things organized well in advance in this group. Actually, if we get organized 2 weeks in advance, we're doing pretty well, right? Right. Okay, anyway, we do invite you all to show up tomorrow at 1 for the workshop series, and tomorrow evening, approximately 9 or 9:30, for our evening concert. We invite you also to drink a lot tomorrow, because that is what keeps Soap Creek in business, and we really appreciate Ed making this space available for all of us. He's been really supportive to us. It's kind of ironic. When the AFTM started 10 years ago, we started to conduct our regular twice-a-month meetings at the Split Rail Inn, and at that point, Ed was the manager at the Split Rail Inn, right? And now here we've come full cycle, 10 years later, and we're here at Soap Creek with Ed again, and we really are appreciative of all the support we've gotten from him down through the years. So, okay. We want to close the evening then. Anybody who's coming to my house to stay, please gather over there so I know who to bring, who's going to follow us, or whatever is going on. We're going to spirit Chuck back here this evening so he can tune the piano, right? Some people get to sleep late, not Chuck, however. So, since he's playing for the workshop tomorrow. Okay, tomorrow, if you have any questions of any of these organizations, please feel free to talk to the representatives thereof. They will be around after and before conducting their workshops. And if you've got any questions of the AFTM, we will have a table tomorrow as well. Thanks a lot for showing up this evening, and good night. Glenn. Earl is going to go ahead and run the PA, at least until Leo gets here. I want to welcome you all here. We are starting a little bit late, which is, of course, to be expected because we were overly optimistic in thinking we could have music till 2 last night and actually be coherent at 1 this afternoon. But what we're going to do, we're going to be running a series of 6 workshops here today. 4 of them will be on the main stage, and the other 2 will be either over in that area or in back. Those will be the dance-related workshops. Since we're running a little late, the first workshop will be a little bit shorter than we had planned, but this first workshop is going to be on bluegrass instrumentation, and it's sponsored by the Central Texas Bluegrass Association. And the people that are going to be conducting this workshop are the Hill Country Express. They were here playing last night. Now, we're going to start over in that area in just a few minutes, a workshop on the relationship between Irish music and dance, and that's sponsored by the Southwest Celtic Music Association. And Molly Bennett of St. James Gate is going to be conducting that, and she's going to have a couple musicians assisting her in that. So I'm going to turn the stage here over to Hill Country Express so they can start telling you about bluegrass instrumentation.
Good morning, everybody. Everybody looks bushy-tailed and bright-eyed after being up all hours of the night. Gonna check the mics real quick.
Turn the monitors around.
Test 1 2.
That sounds like it.
Run everything down, let me turn this up, then we'll start up.
Test front. Is anything coming out there, Earl? Test front, test front, test front. Test front, test front.
Test 1 2. Check.
Are we ready? We're the part of the Hill Country Express. Some of us had to work today and we took off here. But we're glad to be with you. We really enjoyed being with you last night and hearing all the other good music. And there's going to be some more great stuff tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about the history of bluegrass. And it goes way back to the kind of Celtic music that we heard last night in St. James Gate. And Chuck Strickland is from Rainerdine over here on the fiddle, and he's agreed to sit in and help us out a little bit today. I wanted him to play a fiddle tune that would give you an idea of how the Irish, Scottish fiddle music turned into Appalachian music, which turned into bluegrass. He's going to do one called Haman's Reel.
Haman's Reel.
Thank
collection of murder ballads that has come into the bluegrass, been put into the bluegrass form also. It's called Bury Me Beneath the Willow. Two verses and two verses.
It's not murder, it's just national debt. My heart is sad and I'm lonely for the only one I love. When shall I see her? Oh, no, never, till we meet in heaven above. Oh, bury me beneath the willow under the weeping willow tree, so she will know where I'm sleeping and perhaps he'll weep for me. She told me that she dearly loved me. How could I believe it true? Until the angel softly whispered, she has proven true to you. Oh, bury me beneath the willow under the weeping willow tree, so she will know where I'm sleeping and perhaps she'll weep for me.
Come on, Chuck, let's hear it.
Tomorrow was our wedding day. God, oh God, where can she be? She's out of courting with another and no longer cares for me. Oh, bury me beneath the willow under the weeping willow tree, so she will know where I'm sleeping and perhaps she'll weep for me.
Thank you. And that song was in the standard bluegrass form, where you have, usually have a lead singer who sings the verses, and either two or three other voices that come in on the choruses, and then the instruments take turns taking what they call breaks. And that's a standard bluegrass song. A great deal of bluegrass comes through the Carter family. Maybelle, Sarah, and Papa Carter, who did more songs than anyone can count. And a great many of them have become bluegrass standards, as done by Bill Monroe and Flat and Scruggs, and they're still being done by new bands that come along today. Some of the ones you might be familiar with, that Flat and Scruggs have done, are Jimmy Brown, the Newsboy, and You Are My Flower. Some of the gospel type songs, I'll Fly Away, Keep on the Sunny Side. We're all going to do Keep on the Sunny Side in a few minutes.
Even brought song sheets to that, just like the campfire.
Pete, you want to tell us a little bit about Bill Monroe and Monroe Brothers?
Yeah, I'd like to follow up on something you said a minute ago first, that including the breaks and solos in bluegrass bands. In the string bands, they tend to play on top of each other, so you have 4 or 5 instruments going at once. And some of those real early recordings, like you have with Kid Tanner and the Skillet Lickers, is about 8 of them going at once, including 4 fiddles that you can't even identify. So I think Monroe maybe did a service and separated that out, so everybody's instrument comes through better. And some instruments, like the auto harp, which Mike over here has brought out of the closet and into the bluegrass band, some some of those instruments need to be amplified a lot in order to be heard. Yeah, Bill and Charlie Monroe started recording together in the early 30s, and this was before there was bluegrass as an identified form. Two brothers, and they traveled with Uncle Dave Macon at that time, and sometimes with Roy Acuff. They added a fiddle, and then later later added Earl Scruggs to the band and formed the first bluegrass band.
The form gets its name from Bill Monroe's band, the Bluegrass Boys. Let's do one Wabash Cannonball that the Carters did, that just about every other bluegrass band has done.
But before we do that, we need to make an announcement that the Irish Workshop is going to start outside to the south there in about 5 minutes. So if you're interested in that, step outside and enjoy the weather.
Chuck?
Chuck had to go play
Irish Workshop. All right, that's what happens. You play two forms.
That's what happens with your first one.
Right, that's what it is, right. From the great Atlantic Ocean to the wide Pacific shore, from the Queen of Flowing Mountains to the South Belle by the shore, she's mighty tall and handsome, known quite well by all. She's a combination of a Wabash Cannonball. She came down from Birmingham one cold December day. When she rode into the station, you could hear all the people say, there's a gal from Tennessee, she's long and she's tall. She came down from Birmingham on the Wabash Cannonball. Here's to Daddy Claxton, may his name forever stand, and always be remembered around the ports of our land. He served their races over and the curtains round and fall, who carried home the victory on the Wabash Cannonball. Our eastern states again, that's all the people always say. From New York to St. Louis and Chicago, by the way. From the lakes of Minnesota where the rippling waters fall, no chances can be taken on the Wabash Cannonball. Listen to the engine, hear the jingle and the roll, as she glides along the woodland through the hills and by the shore. Hear the mighty rush of the engine, hear that lonesome old call, riding through the jungle on the Wabash Cannonball. Do it, Mike.
Thank you. I'd like for Pete to talk a little bit about the Martin guitar, and well, about the guitar in general in bluegrass, and the Martin in particular.
In terms of early country music, the guitar is a late entry into the thing. The early string bands from 1900 to 1930, if I'm to believe my friends Overman and Foster, mostly did not have guitars. They used fiddles and banjos. And if more people came, they just added more fiddles. Had dulcimers a lot because poor people could afford those. But the guitar found its way in there later, maybe because of TVA. The Martin guitar is, of course, a very fine instrument. A lot of people think it's the best one.
I wish I had one.
All right. Well, people that have them tend not to have very much else, for whatever that's worth.
Right.
The advantage of it is the clear, bright tone quality, particularly in the bass, so that it comes through, and you can always hear that rhythm stroke against the fiddle and banjo, which we don't seem to have right now.
Our banjo player had to dig post holes.
Post holes.
I'm sure most people have heard of Flatt and Scruggs, and they're the ones that really brought bluegrass to the whole country when they made popular the theme song to the Beverly Hillbillies a few years back. And Earl is the one that perfected the Earl's what has been called a Scruggs style banjo playing with the picks, and is so distinctive about bluegrass music. The Flatt and Scruggs also do a great many Carter family songs, and you want to do a little bit of You Are My Phone?
It's going to be very good.
When summertime has gone and leaves begin to fall, you can sing the song and say to one and all, you are my flower that's blooming in the mountains so high. You are my flower that's blooming there for me. So always wear a smile, and life will be worthwhile. Forget your tears and don't forget to smile. You are my flower that's blooming in the mountains so high. You are my flower that's blooming there for me. Maybe we can get Mike to tell us a little bit about the auto harp and how it came into country music, mainly with Maybelle Carter.
Well, it never really arrived, actually. And it's not a real popular bluegrass instrument either. It just exists. It was originally developed as a means for teaching music. You've heard references to stories about visiting music teachers, and that was how this came about. A gentleman devised a method of teaching music and involved giving actually numbers to different notes of the scale. So he assigned a number to each different note, and the early harps actually had those numbers instead of note names. And they went from town to town giving instruction on them. Initially it was primarily a lap instrument, kind of like a dulcimer. It's played flat and crossed hands. Pop Stoneman played that way. He put a case on his lap to get a little more amplification out of it, and still couldn't get a whole lot of volume out of it. Maybelle Carter, actually in the Carter family, Sarah played the auto harp. Little known bit of trivia. And Maybelle started to play it after she broke away, and she began to hold it upright so she could play into a microphone easier, because it simply couldn't get enough amplification out of her harp, out of it playing on her lap. So that's the way I do it. It's a little easier to pick melodies that way. You can see the notes a little easier, and it's largely a rhythm instrument, but with a little bit of very minimum talent, you can pick melodies out of it.
Yeah, you heard Joey Snow?
Mm-hmm.
Boy, he's hot.
Yeah, that's right.
Minimum of talent.
And this particular one has some modifications on it, so that instead of a strictly chromatic scale, you get what they call a diatonic scale. That again facilitates playing the melodies a little easier. And there's a whole raft of enthusiasts located primarily in California. If you want to learn how, you too can have one like this with a lot of patience, and all you got to do is retune each string and make a whole new set of chord bars. And you too can play diatonic harp. We're doing a lot of Carter stuff here, kind of as a fallback position. And this is one of my favorite Moros Carter songs. It's called The Cyclone of Ryco.
This is a sad song.
Documents a tornado hitting a schoolhouse. Scott County, Virginia, about 1917. Oh, listen today of the story I tell, of sadness and tear-dimmed eyes, of the dreadful cyclone that came this way and blew our schoolhouse away. Ryco, Ryco, the place of my childhood and home, where in White's were born I once loved to roam, but now it's so silent and alone. When the cyclone appeared, it darkened the air, and the lightning flashed over the sky. And the children all cried, don't take us away, and spare us to go back home. Ryco, Ryco, the place of my childhood and home, where in life's flurry morn I once loved to roam, now it's so silent and alone. There were mothers so dear and fathers the same that came to that mournful scene, searching and praying, each found his own child lying on a pillow of stone. Ryco, Ryco, the place of my childhood and home, where in life's weary morn I loved to roam, but now it's so silent and alone.
Thank you. We're going to let Pete do a little more modern bluegrass song, and then we're going to get you all to sing along with the song.
It's a Delmore Brothers piece done in the 30s, but it was revived a lot during the festivals, particularly in the early 60s when it started becoming popular for the first time. A little more up-tempo for the bluegrass band.
What's wrong with the tempo on that other?
Yeah. I'd rather be in some dark corner where the sun won't never shine than to be alone, just knowing that you're gone. It would cause me to lose my mind. So freight train blow your whistle, carry forward down the track. I'm going away, I'm leaving today. I'm going, but I ain't coming back.
the freight train blow your whistle, and we fly on down the track. I'm going away, I'm leaving today. I'm going, but I ain't coming back. I'm going away, I'm leaving today. I'm going, but I ain't coming back.
David, I've got some copies of Keep on the Sunny Side here. Would you hand them out to anybody that would like to?
Sure will. One of my favorites.
The Carter family went to Del Rio in 1929 and started making their records down there and broadcasting their shows and selling some kind of crazy medicine, back pills or something. Those tapes were made there.
They were goat
and
pills.
Right. And they went back home to Tennessee, and then they set up their shows for the rest of the year, and then they make trips back down to Del Rio to make more tapes and keep selling that show. They came through Dallas and Austin on their way, and a lot of their music reflects things that they learned in Texas. This song, Keep on the Sunny Side, was their theme song. And it was still being played as late as 1952 or 3, after they were no longer recording anymore. They were still playing the tapes out of Del Rio, and you could hear this was the theme song which always introduced the show. Johnny Cash tells us that Keep on the Sunny Side is A.P. Carter's tombstone. So it has a lot of history to it.
It's written on your sheet in F, but maybe you won't mind if we do it in D.
Jerry likes it.
I don't do it.
Yes.
I'll sing a couple of verses, and I'd like for you all to come in with us on the chorus, if you would. Sing the harmony if you know and feel like it.
So you want 3 verses?
Only trouble is I don't know. You all sing the third one for me. And we'll have a break between the first and second verse and between the second and third verse. There's a dark and troubled side of life. There's a bright and a sunny side too. Though we meet with the darkness and strife, the sunny side we also may view. Keep on the sunny side, always on the sunny side. Keep on the sunny side of life. It will help us every day, it will brighten all the way, if we keep on the sunny side of life. Guitar. Though the storm in its fury break today, crushing hopes that were cherished so dear, storm and cloud will at last pass away. The sunny day will dawn bright and clear. Keep on the sunny side, always on the sunny side. Keep on the sunny side of life. It will help us every day, it will brighten all the way, if we keep on the sunny side of life.
Just like the record, folks.
Let us greet with a song of hope each day, though the morning be cloudy or fair. Let us trust in our Savior always, who keepeth everyone in His care. Keep on the sunny side, always on the sunny side. Keep on the sunny side of life. It will help us every day, it will brighten our way, if we keep on the sunny side of life. One more time. Keep on the sunny side, always on the sunny side. Keep on the sunny side of life. It will help us every day, it will brighten our way, if we keep on the sunny side of life. want to come up and ask any questions or talk
You
some more?
mentioned Uncle Dave Macon. Can you do any Uncle Dave Macon songs?
Oh, neat.
There he is.
The Dixie Drew Drop himself,
Yeah.
folks. All right.
Why don't you do one of his songs?
Wish we did.
You don't know any?
The Red Clay Ramblers will fix that for us tonight, pal. They do a bunch of them. You bet.
I read something the other day I thought was interesting that.
Zachary Hammond, right, I agree.
Yeah.
um,
What's that?
That for all practical purposes, it was the Clinch Mountain Boys that popularized the lead guitar as a lead instrument in bluegrass.
Probably true. Yeah.
Because prior to that, even they themselves had been using mandolin, and then they just made this radical switch
Carter
off to
Stanton.
the lead guitar.
Carter did that, sure. That's true.
Well, if y'all are, you need to do more Uncle Dave Macon songs.
That's what Bill Northolt.
That was the Hill Country.
Who all was here last night?
I was.
Last night I told a story about a tailor. I probably shouldn't have done that because that story is the basis for the workshop I do on storytelling. I'm having the same problem I had last night with the glasses here. Excuse me. Standing here with glasses on, I see spots in front of my eyes. Storytelling is probably one of the oldest forms of entertainment that there is, the most ancient. Surely, in the evening after the hunt and after the feast, the cavemen would sit around and tell of their adventures during the hunt, which was an inspiration to the younger members of the tribes. And as time went on, storytelling became a very refined form of art. The ancient Romans and their plays up through Shakespeare and modern drama. But one element of storytelling that has always intrigued me is just the old sit-down telling lies around the old country store or whatever. I got an echo here. Oh, okay. I hear myself coming back at me. I don't know if I sound better going out or coming in. The story that I'm going to use, some of you heard last night, as I said, is the tailor. Goes like this. A long time ago, there was a tailor who lived in a very small town. And although he had made overcoats for many people, he had never been able to have a fine overcoat for himself. Though this is the thing that he wanted more than anything else. But finally, through many years of saving and being very frugal, he got enough money together to buy the material to make a fine overcoat. And he brought that material into his shop and made a pattern. And he cut the material very carefully, and he sewed it very skillfully. And he made the most beautiful overcoat that anyone had ever seen. And he wore that overcoat for years and years. Every time it was just the least cold, he would put it on, until it was completely worn out. Well, he thought it was worn out, but he got to looking at it, and he found that there was just enough material left in that overcoat to make a vest. And he made a pattern, and he cut the material very carefully, and he sewed it very skillfully. And he made a really great vest, and he put it on, and he wore it continuously until it was completely worn out. Well, he thought it was completely worn out, but after looking at it a little while, it works real well. What I want to cover just a little bit in what I'm doing here is different kinds of stories and how to go about doing stories and presenting stories. The first thing you have to do if you're going to be a storyteller is to find a story. Well, where do you do this? They're all over. You have story experiences every day, and some people have a real knack at putting these things together. It's not my forte. I can do that to some extent. but not with any great talent as I have seen. I have to work for mine. I go to the library and look in the folklore section usually. And well, about 1 out of every 100 stories you read in books, you will find one that you can use for telling. A story that is written is not easy to tell. You have to just about restructure it because our written language is totally different from spoken language. Once you get this story, you find a story that you like, that you want to tell. Your next thing is to learn the story. There are key parts of the story you have to learn. If we go back to the tailor, you have to know exactly how it starts. Not exactly word for word, but you have to know what you're going to say. A long time ago, in a village, there was a tailor. Okay, you have the story started. From there on, you can practically just let it roll. Just visualize in your mind what's happening to this guy and keep it going. Now, there are some key phrases in that as you move along until it was completely worn out. Then you got to pause, and that pause does something very important for you when you're telling the story. And that is, it gives you a few minutes to think of what's coming next. Okay, then the ending. You've got to have the ending. Be sure you memorize what the conclusion of the story is. If you don't have the ending, you ruin the whole story. You've lost it. So that is about all you have to know to be able to tell a story. Now, some of the different types of stories that you'll come into, the traditional folk stories, it runs the gamut of, well, from an American folk stories, you can find regional stories from every part of the country. The B.A. Botkin books are a very good source for finding telling stories. And I don't really know how many. I have everything except the New England folk stories. He has a treasury of American folklore. He has Southern folklore, Mississippi folklore, railroad folklore, New England folklore, Western folklore. And there's probably others that I don't even know about. But they have some very good stories in them. Since it's close to just beyond Halloween, I would like to tell you a ghost story, which are very popular, especially in Southern folklore. It seems there was a preacher, and the preacher was asked to rid this house of ghosts that had been haunting the house so that no one could live there. And he figured, being a man of the Lord, he wouldn't have any problem doing that, so he goes to this house on a stormy night. And he builds himself a roaring fire in a fireplace and sits down and commences to read the Bible. And as the night progresses, and he's been sitting here for a while and he's reading his Bible, he hears on the stairways coming up from the cellar, steps, step, 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 coming up toward the door. Step, step. And he sees the doorknob turn. And he jumps up and says, "Who are you?" And he just hears a sigh and there's nothing there. So he goes over and pokes the fire a little bit, and he goes back and sits down in his chair and he starts reading the Bible again, and in a few minutes he hears on the steps again, step, step, coming closer and closer to the door. He gets up and goes over to the fireplace and he's listening. Steps get closer, and he sees the doorknob turning a little bit. And he sees the door open just a little bit, and he can see a figure standing out there. And it looks like a young girl. And he yells, "Who are you and what do you want?" And he just hears a sigh and it just disappears and fades away. By this time, the guy is really shook. I mean, he's shaking. He can't even read. He can't hold his Bible. Won't read it. So he's standing by the fireplace, and he hears the steps again coming up the stairs. Step, 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 real slow. He sees the doorknob turn, and he sees the door open up. And he decides this time he's gonna find out, get to the bottom of this thing once and for all. The door eases open, and he sees a young girl, and she's about 20 years old, and she's in a state of decay, and her skin's falling off her face, and her hair's all messed, and she smells real earthy, And he says, "What in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost do you want, and who are you?" And she comes right across the room and just takes hold of his lapel, pulls him right up to her, and he's scared stiff. And she says, "I was killed by my lover for my fortune. And if you will go into the cellar and find my bones and give them a Christian burial, and when you give them a Christian burial, take the smallest bone from my little finger of my left hand and put it in a collection plate. Next time you have church services, you will find out who my killer was. And after you do that, come back here one more time, and I will tell you where my treasure is buried." So he does that. He goes down and finds the bones, and takes them out in the backyard and buries them, and he says a prayer over the grave. And he takes the little bone from the left hand, from the little finger, and the next Sunday he puts it in a collection plate. And as the collection plate was passed around the congregation, when he gets to a certain man, and he gets his hand close to the bone, to the plate, the bone just jumps up and sticks to his hand, and he jumps up and starts trying to tear it off. And it's stuck, and he can't get it, and he's screaming, and he's going crazy out of his mind, and they grab him and set him down and talk to him, and he confesses that he killed the girl. And they tried him, hanged him. And then the preacher went back to the house, and when it got dark, the ghost of this girl came back to him and told him that if he would move the hearth rock in front of the fireplace and dig there, he would find her treasure, and he did. And he became rich forever after that. Now, the coat he was wearing that first night when she grabbed his lapels just had holes burned in it. It looked like fire had burned it, and he never could get those stains out. And no one ever saw that ghost anymore after that. And that's how ghost stories usually end, is if someone catches the ghost, takes care of the problem, it goes away and doesn't bother anyone anymore. Some of the other types of stories are the liars clubs. There are around this country a number of liars clubs. And I have always admired some of these guys. They could come up with some of these things. When I was growing up, we lived in central Arkansas and had a farm, and my father got hurt, couldn't work for 3 years. We lost the farm and spent the rest of my teenage years working on farms, mostly for other people, doing farm labor. We moved to Michigan. Now, Michigan is a very cold place, and the ground freezes very hard. So hard, in fact, that one spring I was out digging post holes with an auger type of post hole digger on the back of a tractor, works on the power takeoff, and that thing got stuck in the frozen ground so tight that it turned the farm around, 160 acres. West was facing east. Now that's from the Liars Club. This past year, the winning entry at the Burlington National Liars Contest in Burlington, Wisconsin, the chief of police, who has been chief of police 25 years in the town, simply got up and stated that he had supported every administration in the city of Burlington since he had been with the police department. And he became the national champion liar for saying. So you never know what people will tell about that. The story of the petrified forest is from the Liar's Bench. Another form of storytelling is song, especially the ballad. There are many ballads that are, or many stories that have been put to the form of song. Some are true, and some are not so true. I'd like to do maybe a couple. Well, that didn't work too good. This is the saga of a young upstate New York girl. She was born in a no-ness valley. Her mom and pa just called her Sally. She grew up to be the pride of the valley, a typical Monongahela gal. She wandered one day down by the river, where she watched Jason steaming by, and her heart gave a leap and a quiver. She caught that handsome pilot rolling eyes. Now his name, he must know, was Moses Stanley, and he wore fancy sporting clothes. He was tall, dark, and handsome and manly, the slickest pilot that ever steered a boat. It was love, fearless love by the river. It was love, fearless love by the shore. And I'm sure that the good Lord could forgive her, 'cause he never knew what love was like before. Now Moses swore he always loved her, as they locked through the old Innsworth Dam. But that night overboard he did shove her. Then Moses Stanley took it on the land. Now no one could say that Sal was sickly, for she never even took time out to ball. She just hightailed it on down to Squiggly, slapping out a fast Australian crawl. There she caught a fast freight for Rochester. There was smoke steaming close to shore, and from a yard full who tried to molest her, she up and swiped a big old 44. Now Sal, she raised up that sheet iron, and she fired 6 shots in the moat. And when she laid down that revolver, she sure messed up that fancy sporting coat. Roll on Monongahela, where the catfish and the carp left long ago. You used to be so pure, but now you're just as if you're going to tell a story, if you can relate to the story, make it your story, a personal